Happy Devils Wednesday. This is State of the Fan Address, episode 193, coming to you live from American Whiskey as the Devils are taking on the Boston Bruins. But it doesn't matter. I am with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network, as it's still a lively place while the game's going on, Nick. But there's a lot to talk about in the year 2022 about your New Jersey Devils, Nick.
Yeah, and we're going to do something fun, something we've never done before. As a year in review, I figured what better way to figure out the stories of the season, the stories of the year, than to go through the pucksandpitchforks.com archive. So, Sam, I need you to pay attention here, because this is the premise of the show, and I didn't explain this to you yet.
Oh my goodness! Well, I am paying attention. I'm just trying to adjust the sound here, but because there's a lot of background sound, so I'm just making sure that people can hear you.
So what I'm going to do is I have the analytics for pucksandpitchforks.com here. We're going to go month by month and talk about the top articles of that month as like the year in review. The big articles, the big storylines, right? So we only have a certain amount of time because the game's on. You got to do a post-game show. So you let me know when you're ready to go, and we'll jump right into it.
I'm ready to go. I am ready to go, Nick. Let's go.
I lost sound for half a second, so I didn't know what happened. But we're good. So
I just muted myself because there's literally a DJ right there blaring music. So I'm just
no worries.
being
I hear you loud and clear, though. I think we're in good shape. But we'll
all right.
So
okay.
let's go to January.
As long as you're not complaining. Yep.
We're all good. So let's go to January. At that point, the season is the 2021-22 season was basically already over. All the goalies were hurt at that point. What was it? John Gillies was our starter. And I think this was even before Nico Dawes really established himself. So the number one story of January 2022 was 5 New Jersey Devils players who could be available at the trade deadline. Yes, Sam, we were talking about the trade deadline again in the first month of the year. It was what it was. Yeah, I mean, that's where we were. We were not a good team. We had to talk about what trade options we had. And that was the biggest article of the month. The second biggest article was also a trade piece. The third biggest article was the boldest trades in Devils history, so it was another trade piece. And then the fifth biggest article was a Capo Caco Jack Hughes comparison, because that's pretty much when it became clear that Jack Hughes was the best player in the 2019 draft. Capo Caco isn't even the second best player in that draft. So it became very clear that argument was over at that point. So that was basically what January was. Any thoughts on the January pieces?
Well, you know what? Look, it was a goalie merry-go-round at the beginning of 2022. But there was one constant when he was healthy was Jack Hughes. Remember, he only played, 4 periods to start the season. And then he went down. Then he came back. And but the goalie situation was just, at that point, very just unbearable. There's nothing the Devils could have done at that point. Just dropping like flies.
Yeah. It never really got better. But let's jump to February. And goalies were once again the theme. The top article that month, 5 goalies that could save the New Jersey Devils next season. So it was February, and we were already looking ahead to the next season. And I'm actually kind of curious, Sam. I don't think Vitek Vanacek was on that list. I'm going to look real quick just to see. I can't imagine that he was.
I think he came out of obscurity with that trade. I mean, there was the guy in Anaheim. Was it Gibson? I believe, and then there was all sorts of, and the guy in Toronto, who I forgot where he went, Campbell, where he went. It was just a cluster. Just a cluster of speculation
The goalies on that list were Jack Campbell, who you mentioned, Marc-Andre Fleury, Chris Driedger, who since then had a very scary injury, so he's been out. Cam Talbot is having kind of a rough season in Ottawa, and then Darcy Kemper, who won the Stanley Cup. So, some good ideas, some bad ideas. The Jack Campbell thing, I will say, I wrote before I knew that he was going to get a $5 million per year deal, so that's definitely not great. But that was the main story there. And then we looked at we were looking at the draft already. Again, this is where we were in February. So we look at the 5 players worth New Jersey Devils' first-round pick in the draft. Again, I'm now curious, Sam. Was Simone Nemitz in that conversation? I don't even think he was. Oh, wait, maybe I read this wrong.
I'll tell you what. You were the only one that was dreaming of the pairing of Luke Hughes and Simon Nemitz. And I don't know when you did that dream, but I believe it was a couple months prior to the draft. I would like to say in April or May that time, but we're in February right now.
So, yeah, I wrote this. This was actually about a trade. Trading the Devils' first-round pick for a player. 4 of the players make a lot of sense. Jacob Chychrun, Spencer Knight, Timo Meier, and Matthew Tkachuk. But one of the other players on the list, Brock Besser. I'm not going to take claim for Brock Besser. That was definitely a terrible take there. But that was basically what we were talking about. Oh, another thing we were talking about, 3 acceptable trade packages for Jesper Bratt. If you remember in February, there was at least an inkling that the Devils could sell high on Bratt after how his negotiation went the last time. I don't know if do you remember that in February, that kind of inkling coming along?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Obviously, the names that you have to get in a Jesper Bratt trade have to be ridiculous. But it didn't happen because I don't think teams are willing to part ways with that ridiculous player to get a Jesper Bratt type. And I think the same rumors are going to happen this offseason. And I think the same nothingness is going to happen this offseason. So let's fast forward to March. In March, we were talking about the trade deadline. This is when it actually happened. Biggest article of the month, obviously, that Jesper Bratt article I wrote late in February, and it was also the top article in March. So we had double dipping there for that. But besides that one, the biggest article was going through what the Devils could expect in return for PK Subban. Obviously, they didn't really get anything because
they got a little PR in the end there.
Yeah, I mean, he gets to finish his career with the Devils, which is kind of interesting, kind of cool. But besides that, didn't really get anything for PK. So that was a nothing burger. Looking at the future of 5 struggling Devils players, just trying to figure out, what the future was for like an Andreas Janssen or a Tomas Tatar, and kind of seeing whether they were fixable or whether it was something that was beyond reprieve. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I am watching this game in the corner of my eye, and Dawson Mercer just missed an empty net because this is just how this month has gone. The Devils have been dominating this Bruins game. They're not getting the.
You're not supposed to be talking about it.
I'm sorry. It just makes me angry. Anyway, so let's go to April. The top story in April, 5 New Jersey Devils prospects who fell below expectations. Now, you remember April, we're coming to about the end-ish of the season. We're right about there. So we're doing a little bit of a recap. And there were just a bunch of prospects that we had really high hopes for. And these aren't even players that are in the organization. For example, the list was Nolan Foote, Michael Vukovic, Graham Clark, who's having a phenomenal season, Jeremy Pitlick, who really just he's been getting injured every year, and he's fallen off the face of the earth. I don't even see people mention Pitlick at all when it comes to prospects. I don't even know if he made my top 25 prospects. He didn't. So
I forgot about that guy.
Fault. You know, and then Cole Brady was another one who just had a horrendous season with Arizona State. He's in a different situation now, and hopefully it's getting better for him. And then article I wrote, trade everything for Connor Hellebuyck. I stand by it, Sam. We should have traded everything. We should have traded the second overall pick. We should have traded whatever prospect they wanted. Trade everything for Hellebuyck. The Devils wouldn't be in this position, but they didn't do it, Sam, and now, we're in second place in the Metropolitan Division. We're in second place. So I guess everything's fine, but I don't know. And then we also wrote an article about 4 coaching situations the team should pay attention to. Let me be curious. I'm curious. Did I write the Panthers on here? Because I would have been right on the money there. Right? Not saying that they were going to replace Lindy Ruff exactly, but see, I mentioned the Islanders that I thought that Barry Trotz had a chance to get canned. Yeah, okay. I didn't put the Florida Panthers on here. I actually had Marty St. Louis to see if Canadians were going to sign him or not. But that was April, Sam. I mean, it's coaching situation, draft, and then kind of the disappointment that is the prospects and the players in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to predict. But I did predict, if you remember back in February, the Lindy Ruff needing one more season, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, you were definitely on that train while a lot of us were on a different train.
Begging me to stop the trolling.
Listen, it is what it is. What happened?
Any idiot can get it right once. This happens to be me.
Sorry, this didn't work out like I wanted to. Okay, here we go. All right, where are we? That was April, right? So we're going to May. So in May, the top article of May, we talked about the players who played their last game with the New Jersey Devils. And, again, let's see. Let's see if we were right here, Sam.
I mean, you kind of forget, like, the season was delayed a little bit. Just remember. Yeah. Because when I'm thinking in May, I'm thinking, well, they didn't make the playoffs. But, no, the season ended end of April.
I think it went into May. I think it went a week or two into May, right?
Yeah, or something like that, yeah.
I think it went a week or two into May. So we looked at the Devils who played their last game. Andrew Hammond, who I believe never played another NHL game, right? He retired.
Retired, yeah.
John Gillies, who he was. Jimmy Vesey, who went across the river. I was wrong about this one. Mason Geertsen thought he played his last game for the Devils, but he's still in the organization. He got signed this offseason. And then Sam. Does anybody remember that Christian Jaros was in this organization?
Yeah, I mean, he was there. Let's put it that way.
I thought he had a chance to do something. I don't know if it was a bad fit or what happened.
Had the size
but,
on paper.
Yeah,
he had the size on paper. That was about it.
And the Devils were looking for size. They didn't have to give up much for him. They gave up Nick Merkley, who I don't think he's still not an NHL regular, I know. I don't think he's really played much in the NHL at all. So it's not like they lost anything big, but yeah, Jaros just not one of Fitzgerald's better moves. One of those things where I understand the reasoning, I don't, but the execution just wasn't there. Let's jump to. Oh, let's see what else was there. And then the other ones we were talking about. Second overall pick trades. You remember that everybody was talking about the Elliot Friedmans, the Frank Saravallis, the Devils are losing. This team sucks. Everybody under the sun was talking about how the Devils were going to trade the second overall pick. They were talking to teams. They were in on Alex DeBrincat. They were in on Timo Meyer. They were in on whoever, wherever, whenever. Michael McLeod just handed the Bruins a goal. Oh, I'm so mad. Ugh. React to the
Nick,
second overall pick trade.
Stop.
Sam.
Concentrate.
I can't. This team ruins my soul. I am darkness now. I am darkness.
Wait. Did you say ruins or Bruins your soul?
I'm going to die, Sam. This team makes me want to do that.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah. So, what did you think about that? Did you want to trade the second overall pick? Did you think it was worth getting a certified star? Or are you happy with the way things worked out?
I'm happy the way things worked out. I mean, I was all in on Logan Cooley, to be honest.
You were.
And I think what the Devils did was more of a strategic. I think going defense, getting the best available defenseman in 2022 draft at that time period. I mean, you can't play really Monday morning quarterback on all this, but the bottom line is you possibly have a dynamic duo in Nemitz and Hughes, both. They may be fighting. Has this ever happened in NHL history where a potential, assuming that they would be paired together, would be both vying for a Norris Trophy on the same team, on the same pairing?
I mean,
has that ever happened?
I'm sure it's happened. You're surprised that never happened in the Devils, right? You had Niedermeyer and Stevens, two of the greatest of all time, on the same team. I
think that had a lot to do with nobody liked the Devils. The people that voted.
Well, Niedermeyer won one, right? With the Devils?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so at least they, But Stevens never won the Norris.
But the Scott Stevens thing, never. And the one best season he had, Brian Leach one-upped him in 94.
Yeah. But, I mean, and that's the thing with Stevens. Stevens changed his game. If Stevens played the way he was playing in 94, he'd win at least 2 or 3 Norrises, because he was just such a dynamic player.
Yeah.
But Stevens knew what he needed to do, and he changed the way he played the game because he could play any way he wanted, and he knew, I have one of the best offensive defensemen of all time on my team. Why am I going to be an offensive defenseman? Our team needs somebody who's going to rock somebody's socks and say what you want. We didn't know what that meant back then. It was something that everybody did. He didn't hit people illegally like Ty Domi. He just hit people really freaking hard. I was trying to see if there's... I don't see anything on Norris Trophy teammates.
But there were so many different scenarios. The Slavkovsky, would the Devils trade down? Would they package it for Kachuk or... yada, yada, yada. So,
just
saying goodbye to Shorts guy, that's all.
No worries.
He's just leaving. Yeah.
Not
watching
the game. Let's get back to the
list. Saying goodbye to Shorts guy.
So that was May. Let's go to June. So in June, we were talking about trade proposals in the draft. Goalie options. You mentioned John Gibson earlier. One of our 5th top article was John Gibson trades that make sense. Because Gibson, he hasn't been very good for a while. And we just had to make the trades make sense. We had to make the money make sense. But obviously, it's never going to make sense. Something that's interesting is the 2nd top article this month. 3 trade proposals to move the needle for David Pastrnak. Now, we know Pastrnak, his situation. I don't think he's resigning with the Bruins. So we threw it out there. One trade offer was the 2nd overall pick, Igor Sharangovich and Nolan Foote. Another trade proposal was, if it loads, Pastrnak and Villano for a 2023 unprotected first-round pick, Alexander Holtz and Miles Wood. And then the 3rd trade was Pastrnak and DeBrusk for the 2nd overall pick, a second and a fifth-round pick, and then a 2023 first-round pick. So just going heavy on the picks. I don't. After the season that Pasternak's having, I don't think the Bruins would do any of those trades, to be honest. But an interesting conversation.
I can't believe we were even talking about that back then.
It's wild, but it was definitely a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely written, many different publications.
But let's jump to August. August was our biggest month of the year. 554,000 views in August.
That was a big month for everybody. It was just
I'm sorry, July. We're in July. 555,000 views in July. I'm sorry. But 5 alternatives to Matthew Tkachuk the Devils should pursue. That was after Tkachuk was traded to Florida. And then there's a couple other Matthew Tkachuk trade offer articles that we wrote before he got traded. 5 free agents the Devils must avoid at all costs. I don't think they went after any of them. I'm going to check real quick. But what were your thoughts about the whole Tkachuk thing?
Ooh. I mean, would you really mortgage the Devils to make a move? Because the amount that Florida had to give up was a lot, to the point where the Devils would have had, I mean, Calgary wanted certain players. They wanted turnkey solutions to save face what happened when both Gaudreau and Tkachuk were off the team.
I know.
Getting Huberdeau.
I think people were a little crazy, though, saying, like, oh, trading Huberdeau and Uyghur is like the Devils would have had to trade Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. No, what? To get Tkachuk? No, like, that's not the same thing. Like, if they offered Hischier or Hughes, the Flames would have bent over backwards to pack Tkachuk's bags for him. I understand that Huberdeau had a really good season. He was a Hart Trophy candidate for some part of it, but he had never been in that sphere before. And we're seeing it this year that he's still having a decent season, but he's nowhere near those heights. You know what I mean? And neither are the Flames. So I saw like a lot of people just reacted wildly. But again, I guess, because Florida's not having that great of a season. I think it's mostly because of injuries, but you kind of see what's going on there too. But a lot of it was just free agency stuff, and then, a lot of people weren't happy with the Devils on draft day, because you see, I think the Senators got DeBrincat on draft day, and then the Devils had a chance to get Shane Wright, and they got Simone Nemeth instead. So a lot of people weren't happy, but you were pretty happy now. You said, Sam.
I'm happy because it was strategic. I'm very happy because, again, defense wins championships. You couldn't really go wrong with that. I wanted Logan Cooley. I still want Logan Cooley, but Nemeth, I'm not unhappy about it. I think it's just I think it's the right way to go, especially when, again, it's like Fitzgerald's thinking long term and short term. Getting these right-handed mobile D guys is so invaluable. Although Nemeth shoots left, right?
No, he's right-handed.
Am I right on that? He's right-handed? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Because all right. So anyway, had a brain fart right there. But
yeah, Luke Hughes shoots left. Nemeth shoots right.
That's it. Because I was thinking of the World Juniors goal. I'm kind of like Beer Baron, getting mixed up Ty Smith and Pavel Zacha on Game Day Live. Wow. It's hard to think with all this music going around here.
It's testing your
very lively.
metal.
Yeah.
But let me go a little bit quicker, because I know you're running out of time here. Although the game's only in the second period, so you still got a while until Game Day Live. These national games they take forever, Sam. Where are we? So that was July. Let's go to August. In August, It's still just free agency. It's the Jesper Bratt 1-year deal. That was the big thing. The Devils signed Bratt the day of arbitration to a 1-year deal. And yeah, that was the situation. That's all I got. August was I moved in August, so there wasn't a lot of writing for me. Let's get right into September.
I mean, for the podcast and pucksandpitchforks.com, those were historic, at least on our end, on the podcast. It was a historic month, July and August. That 8-week run, the Devils were like in the news, and and I think we've said it all along that we think that the best thing that happened in New Jersey Devils was Goudreau ghosting Tom Fitzgerald. The Palat news, everything that happened, the John Marino trade, all that. I mean, that was just they're impactful players. Although Palat hasn't really been around yet, but they're just impactful players, and I think both of them down the line with those long-term deals that the Devils have with them, I think they're going to be impactful short-term and long-term.
I agree. So we're going to skip ahead to September. We're talking about, just like that saying, we're talking about the season again. Biggest article of that month, 5 PTO possibilities to target. I believe the Devils ended up going with Zach Senyshyn. There's one other one that they targeted, right? I forget the other PTO that they have, but Senyshyn is in the AHL. I know everybody wanted Evan Rodriguez, who I believe signed a PTO, but the Devils just couldn't afford it. I think he signed a PTO with Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. But the Devils just couldn't afford that. They were right against the cap. So just an interesting spot to be in. Then we projected the opening night roster. Let me see what I got wrong there. Let me see if there's anybody. It doesn't matter. And we did this always does well. The 5 players you don't realize aren't Devils anymore. That's always a fun one. And then we did the 5 best PTOs in franchise history. So if you want to go read that, there's a lot of really good PTOs in the time. Lee Stepniak was a good one.
Yeah, I remember him.
P.A. Parento, I don't remember if he made the list or not, but he was really good for a couple months. I remember him. Devils ended up only trading him for a 6th-round pick, though. That was a weird deal.
I thought Jimmy Vesey wasn't bad. I don't think he was that bad.
When you think of how much he impacted the penalty kill, when the Devils had a record-breaking, terrible penalty kill, and then, they bring this guy who is known as an offensive player, and he comes in and fixes the penalty kill, and the Devils got another penalty. Speaking of which, I do think that was a pretty good move in the long run. But let's skip ahead to October. And if you remember, Sam, October was a pretty good month for us. Pretty
very,
good.
Very nice.
We
had a great time.
The first thing we talked about was which players might make the final roster. This is when, you remember, Nemitz made it all the way to the end. Holtz was in there, and he ended up making it. Nemitz got sent down. Remember there was that weird time where they sent down Ball, and then they kept Nemitz. But then before the first game, ended up sending down Nemitz and kept Ball. Do you remember that? That was weird.
Yeah, that was, I think that was a formality scenario, so to speak. But Kevin Ball really started the season with the Devils in the press box.
Yeah.
And
there was a couple other preview articles
and
that did well. 5 Devils players who will set a career high in points. We talked about like the Jack Hugheses and the Nico Heischerts. An interesting one looking back. 5 trade targets who could turn this ship around. John, new to the staff, wrote that right after the Devils lost that second game, 5-2. They didn't need to make a trade, but they did turn the ship around. And then let's jump ahead to November. Oh, November. We love you, November. 5 players who brought the New Jersey Devils to first place. That was the number 1 story. The number 2 story, I really like this article where I analyzed all 3 disallowed goals in the Toronto Maple Leafs game. The one loss they had that season, that month, is they had 3 disallowed goals in a 2-1 loss. Yeah.
The loudest booing I've ever heard, and that in any sporting event. I went to the game 20 years ago when John Rocker came back to Shea Stadium to face the Mets fans after those disparaging 7-line comments that he made, which were vulgar and despicable. And I thought that booing was loud. The booing that happened that night was louder, and I never thought that would be possible. It was electric.
And we love that. We love that from the Devils fans. Devils fans have been showing up.
And this came famous to be thrown out on the ice. Chicken dinner.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm not for throwing trash in the ice. Not our best luck, but, it is what it is. It wasn't as bad as they said. It looks like the Bruins might have gotten a penalty. And then we go to December. Top 25 prospects of the season. That's up at Pucks and Pitchforks right now. 3 teams to target in a Damon Severson trade. That's up in Pucks and Pitchforks right now. And I wrote that after Lindy Ruff decided to bench Damon Severson, which I don't think was the right move. Because I feel like Damon Severson's playing a lot better than we're giving him credit for. And I'm not a Damon Severson defender. I think that his mistakes outweigh all of the little plays that he does right. But, to bench him to play Kevin Ball on his offhand was not a good move. And then I talk about the attendance debate. I hate the attendance debate. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's straight up dumb. Stop talking about attendance. It's just meant to shame fans and shame fan bases, and it's stupid. It's one thing for somebody like Brat Pack to be like, oh, you got to show up to the arena. We got to get here and get loud. That's all positivity and trying to get people hyped. But being like, man, pretty empty in here. Man, at least the arena's full in Columbus. Get the hell out of here. That's so stupid. It's just dumb. The argument is dumb.
I'm surprised some of these reporters will lower themselves to actually put out articles of that. There's several of them, even in the Twitter sphere. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, and I think that's what spurned it, right? There was an Athletic article that's talking about attendance as a whole, but they really zeroed in on the Devils. It's they're this first place team.
Aaron Portzline. Was it Aaron
He made a
Portzline
Twitter
that started
comment.
it?
He made a Twitter comment, but he also works for the Athletic, about how.
Yeah.
And he made that comment during this Columbus Blue Jackets 7-1 shellacking. It's man, not a very full arena in here. It's you're getting shellacked 7-1 on a Sunday afternoon. Maybe you should focus on your team, my dude. Honestly, the attendance debate is dumb. And now Devils fans tag him all the time on Twitter. And I'm not big into that, but when you make a really bad call and you double down on it like he did, they're going to do that. It's just stupid.
And that was on a Sunday, by the way. It was on a Sunday, a football Sunday, in the New York City metro area where you have 2 football teams. And if you want to count South Jersey and the Eagles, come on.
And they're all playoff teams. I know the Jets probably won't make it now, but at that point it looked like they were all playoff teams.
Yeah.
And it was early in it was the attendance debate is stupid. It's never going to be the Rangers or the Knicks because they both play in New York City, which is there's how many people in New York City? I don't even remember, 3 million people?
8 million, 9 million people.
I was I felt like I was way off. That live right there, that are a train ride away.
2000. Yeah.
Yeah. They're a train ride away from a very quick train ride, by the way, from being at the arena. And while the Devils are also a train ride away, it's a drive to the train station.
Well, look what's going to happen against Carolina on January 1st. Okay, you've got the Giants at home against the Colts that same day, New Year's Day, and you've got the Jets, Mike White back in action. Zach Wilson's going to take a back seat. The Jets have somewhat of a probability. Again, when you have a diluted market like that, it thins out the attendance. It's just naturally and I hate comparing apples and oranges, like Philadelphia. Well, they're a one-team sport, whereas LA has a couple teams, Chicago has a couple teams in each professional. It just waters it down.
I agree. But that was the year. That was the year in Devils talk. I think we hit all the big things.
Yep.
The one thing that didn't get covered like it should have was the signing of Andre Palat and the trade for John Marino. I am sorry. I was moving that month twice. More than that, actually. I think I moved 4 times that month. So it was
Nick,
just...
it was a heck of a time for you. There are so many things that happened to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. But there you go. That's 2022. What are your thoughts, Sam? 2022. What a year.
You know what?
Is there anything you could think of that we missed?
I actually wrote more articles this past year than any other year for pucksandpitchforks.com.
And I like it. I like it, Sam.
You know what? I think what's amazing about some of these things that you brought up from January to December, it was a variety of topics on pucksandpitchforks.com. It wasn't just all Jack Hughes. It was a lot of stuff.
It wasn't much Jack Hughes at all.
Yeah. And somehow we all know Jack Hughes is going to be Jack Hughes. And I think Jack Hughes' Gato and Chill got more attention than what he's been doing out on the ice, or the mini Jack. He's like a very marketable player for the Devils, but it just tells you that fans are thinking outside of the box, outside of Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, all that kind of good stuff. But I think overall 2022 was the year of transition, not only for you, Nick Villano, but for the New Jersey Devils as they are going to mature through their experiences and hopefully in the playoffs in 2023.
Yeah. Listen, we're sweating a little bit more. Devils only have, I think it's a 4-point lead on the Islanders, who are out of the playoffs right now. So you don't love that, Sam. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be a race to the finish. Even Carolina. Carolina is hot right now, just like the Devils were hot last month, and they're going to have their own reckoning. It's just how these teams go. They're going to get an injury that's really going to impact them. And the same thing's going to happen to the Rangers. The same thing's going to happen to the Capitals. These teams, it's going to be cycles. The Devils aren't going to be bad forever. I don't think this team is too good. I see how they play against the Bruins tonight, and it's more luck than anything. I hate saying that, but this team has just been...
Yeah. Well, sometimes you make your own luck, and sometimes you get lucky. But I think the Devils right now are in that transition where they're finding ways to win, and they're finding ways how not to lose. But it's just going a little bit slower than what we really wanted, And Nick, I think your feed just dropped. Oh no, Nick Villano. Unless he's just staying still. Anyway, want to thank all those tuning in to the State of the Fan address presented by pucksandpitchforks.com. And that's our year in a review. And I'm stalling as much as I can so Nick can say goodbye, but I'm going to hit the music right now. It's been fun, folks. This has been a fun year, 2022. But hopefully, I was just hitting the music, closing out the podcast.
You can close out.
You got any closing
was
thoughts?
dumb. No, just go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Trey Matthews wrote about Mackenzie Blackwood. I got one in the can from Vinny Parisi talking about Luke Hughes versus Simone Nemitz today. So that'll be up probably in the next half hour. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. I wrote something too. I don't even remember what it was, Sam. That frustrated me that I froze out of nowhere. I wrote a really interesting piece on December and how the Devils have been bad in December basically every year since 2017. Just for some reason, December sucks. We have to ruin Christmas and Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Boxing Day. We have to ruin it all, Sam. That's what the Devils do. But the Devils have never lost in regulation between Christmas and New Year's from 2018 to this year. Every year they've won every game they won all but one game between Christmas and New Year's in that time, and they have one overtime loss to Toronto where Damon Severson scored on his own net. So pretty interesting set there. Read more about that at pucksandpitchforks.com right now.
Yeah, pucksandpitchforks.com. Want to thank all those tuning in during the game. Dropping the podcast at midnight for your morning and afternoon commute. Thank you, Nick. And also, we'll see you next year, and we'll have a brand new podcast song for the State of the Fan address. Till next time, let's go Devils.